And so it just gives you these tools out of the gate so that you realize that, oh, okay, I do this, this happens. I do this, this happens. But in a framework of understand you mess up, things are going to start spiraling down very badly. I played a game last month, and ever since I did, I've been really meaning to talk to you about it for a very, very specific reason. And I figured let's just get that out of the way and do it now.
All right.
Okay. So the game in question is called Green Hell. Are you familiar with this?
Sounds like by name only.
All you really need to know at the outset is that Green Hell is a survival crafting game. We've played those before. It is.
I can already tell you exactly what happens. You crash on an island.
Well, kinda.
You wake up on an island.
We did tropes last week. Very much like the tropes episode we talked about last time. You do indeed wake up on an island. You actually did intend to go to the island, but okay, I'll give you the basic rundown of the storyline so that you understand what's happening. Okay, fine. Anyway, yeah, okay, because then we're going to get way too into the weeds. Anyway.
Because how often do survival crafting games storylines ever matter?
Well, I am going to actually tell you this. The storyline in this is actually pretty good, because it actually has meaning of why they're there, and what happened to them, and why. Anyway, the point of the matter is, not going to get into it. After you go through the, opening sequence where they're kind of, onboarding you to, the different mechanics and everything and giving you the backstory, you do indeed wake up with some gaps in your memory next to a lake in the middle of the Amazon jungle. This is basically where the story starts. And from there, you have to do a lot of the basic things that you normally associate with survival crafting games. You have to build yourself an axe, you have to build yourself a pick, you have to build yourself a knife, stuff that you can use to chop down trees and everything like that. But now, the thing that almost lost me at the outset of Green Hell is not necessarily that there's lots of monsters like you might see in the forest or something like that. What Green Hell has going for it is that they basically took every survival mechanic and they turned it up to 11. And they then added some other ones in. And let me see if I can give you some examples for this. Okay, so in your regular old survival crafting game, you're probably used to the idea of food and water. You gotta eat and you gotta drink. And you gotta do those things so that you can keep up your stamina and you can keep up your health. These are basically...
Occasionally, games will have nutrition as well.
Nutrition, yes. This is a good example of that. The way that they implemented it in Green Hell, though, is that you have a watch. On your watch are 4 quadrants. One of them is water. And then the other 3 is for proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. You have to keep all 3 of those up based on the things that you eat. Different things that you have obviously have different quantities of this. And so you start to realize that depending on how you're foraging, if you're just going for bananas, I got all the carbohydrates that I need, but it's not providing me with proteins or fats. So I now need to figure out something else that I can eat. But then, of course, we have another problem, which is that, okay, well, I need proteins. What would I normally get those from? Well, meat, right? Or fish. So I've got to fish. Okay, well, I can have the fish, but I'm going to have raw fish. Now, a lot of survival games are going to say, oh, yeah, you don't want to eat raw fish. That would be a bad thing.
I mean, you can eat raw fish. I don't understand why the games are don't eat raw fish.
Yeah, so here again, because it's sushi, that raw meat might make you sick. That is a whole thing. They add in a few little complications to this. The first complication is that, raw meat is not going to get you quite the nutrients that you would normally get if you can cook it, and if you can cook it over fire. But also, you can get parasites in this game. So, once you get parasites, it actually starts to sap a lot of your nutrients from your body anyway. And you can start to load up on those over the course of time. And if you eat stuff, and also if you have to eat stuff that might be like bugs, you picked up a scorpion or something, and I really want to eat it, or something like that. Not only will it probably make you sick, but it will also decrease your sanity, because, oh yes, they also put a sanity meter in here. And if your sanity meter goes down, you start to hear voices in your head, and you'll have to fight phantoms that are attacking you. And eventually, like, you will basically suffer phantom pains until you die. So,
Great.
So that's a problem. So the parasites will kill you if you eat the raw meat. Also, if you eat the wrong kinds of meat or other things, you'll lose your sanity and you'll die. Also, if you don't eat enough of different kinds of items in the world, you will have nutrient depletion, and that will affect your thing. And so then you can also have problems and die. Now, I'm going to complicate this for you even more.
Great, love it. Ooh.
There are 2 different meters in this that are going to really talk about your health, and one of them is your stamina, and one of them is your life. If you don't keep up your nutrients, and if you don't keep up your energy, your stamina bar keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until you can pass out. If you pass out when you don't have nutrients, you pass out on the ground. If you pass out on the ground, when you wake up, you might get an alert that you should check your arms and legs. Because this has a whole inspection mechanic where you have to check your arms and legs to see if you have damage. You will have worms that are under your skin. If you have worms under your skin, you need to get them out. You have to get them out with a fish bone or a bone needle. If you don't have those, you gotta go get them, because those worms are going to start basically sucking nutrients out of your body, and
Right.
and they're going to deplete your stamina faster, which is, again, probably going to lead you to falling asleep again and getting more worms. Now, if you do successfully get the worm out of you, you now have an open wound. So what you have to do is you have to have a bandage ready. Now, it can't just be a regular bandage, that's not going to do so much. You have to have a treated bandage that has antiseptic properties, so that you can properly dress that wound, because if you just use a regular bandage, it's probably not going to work completely, and it's going to get infected. If it gets infected, I got to use maggots to get rid of the infection before I can start the process over again. And if you don't have maggots, you're kind of screwed, because your health is now going to deplete, while your stamina is also depleting, which means that you're going to fall asleep again in the middle of the jungle, which means you're going to get more worms.
This just sounds like a death spiral.
It is, because what Green Hell sets up is basically one of the most interesting and, frankly, one of the most fascinating gaming experiences I have ever had. That's kind of the thing I actually wanted to take away from this, because I also just need to say, I also kind of love this game now. Because what I realized from this whole experience is that Green Hell sets up these really lengthy survival mechanics where literally just walking through the jungle, you'll get an alert like, oh, check your arms. You'll just have leeches on you, because you've walked through the jungle. I hear a random, like, rattling. It's probably a rattlesnake. If the rattlesnake bites you, you can get envenomed. I need to get anti-venom. I need to dress the wound, everything like this. What Green Hell sets up is a level of paranoia in everything you do, to the point where you're like, oh god, if anything bad happens, I have a whole process I have to go through to try to fix this, if I can even make it back home to do so. And then when they did, like, Spirits of Amazonia, they even set up more mechanics like this, where...
Was that DLC?
That's the DLC, free DLC, but it was like the updates.
Oh, okay.
But what they do is they introduce centipedes. Centipedes can just decide that they're gonna, like, crawl on stuff that's around the environment. So if you've, like, chopped down a tree and there's, like, leaves on the ground, and you, like, walk away for a minute, you want to go collect the leaves later, and you're hanging onto the leaves, there might be a centipede on there, and you'll see the centipede, like, go over the leaves, and you like, basically have to drop the leaves immediately and deal with the centipede, because if you don't, the centipede will bite you, and now you have a bite from centipede, which means that you've gotten envenomed, which means that you have to deal with venom, from the centipede now. And the centipede's also mad at you.
Do centipedes actually have a venom that can affect humans?
As far as I know, you don't want to get bit by one. You'd prefer not to.
But, I mean, that's with most bugs. You just don't want to get bit by them.
Yeah. I can't remember if it's a poison or a venom, but sadly there are two different things. It's like, there's a poison, there's a venom, and they have to be treated in different ways with different things, too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like, even with bites of bugs that aren't really, toxic, they're generally still irritating, and they have different chemicals that mosquitoes have.
Oh, yeah.
That thing they do where they basically numb the area when they put their fucking proboscis in you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a chemical reaction they can cause, so you don't feel them biting you, and then you have a bug bite. So it's not even that, like, bugs have to be poisonous to be irritating and, like, uncomfortable for you to want to treat.
There was a point early on in Green Hell where I was dealing with all of these things, and I was like, oh god, it's just a laundry list of trying to figure out how I deal with every single problem that comes up. Like, to the point where I don't want to walk anywhere. I don't know if I want to do anything in this game at all. I took a step back, and I actually did look at some stuff online, just like, okay, like, what should I be looking for? Like, just, like, what should I be looking for? Can anybody give me a few tips? And so I got a few tips, and I also started to just learn by doing in the environment, because I just, like, this is something I just kind of discovered. There are lots of coconuts around. Or at least, there are occasionally coconuts around. And you can harvest them, and you end up with coconut bowls. And coconut bowls are really useful because you fill them with, water. You can go to a fire, you can cleanse the water, and so that you have purified water. But then what you can also do, which I found out about, was you can put other things into that to make soups. So if you have a bone, you can put it in, and you basically make a bone broth out of it, which actually gives you fats and, like, proteins, and has, like, and also gives you, hydration as well, because you've combined those things together. If you have turtles around, and you kill the turtle, you can use the turtle shell as an even bigger bowl. And you can do something similar with that. If you leave... This is one of those revolutions where I was like, oh, I didn't even know I could do that, but I stumbled across it. If you just have all these coconut bowls and you don't want to leave them around, you throw them on the ground. And when it rains, they fill up with clear water. Yeah, they fill up with clean water. And then you can just... And so I was like, I found a great workaround, and I stacked a bunch of coconut bowls on top of each other at my base, and so every time it rained, I was like, just drink, all the way down. I just figured this, yay, I've come up with solution to problem. And I think that actually ended up being the reason why I stuck around to play through to the very ending of the game, because I started...
did you finish it?
I finished Green Hell.
Oh, wow.
And one of the reasons was because at some point something clicked in my head that the reason why they were doing all of these extreme survival mechanics was, one, because they wanted to create a sense of paranoia in you that you have to look at everything all the time and you have to pay very close attention. But then also, it kind of has like these sim qualities to them, similar to what you would see in like a Deus Ex or in a Dishonored, where you have to start learning about how using the environment itself can be used to your own advantage, and how you can manipulate this game to do what you want it to do, and how you can utilize it in that way.
So it does quite sound like they didn't just go straight survival crafting.
No.
It sounds like what they did is they went, we're going to build a game that looks like a survival crafter. But really, it's an immersive sim, where there are things that the game isn't going to tell you how it functions and how you can use this, but you can be like, oh yeah, no, this is a way you can use this to get around this and make this other thing way easier for you.
And once I started to realize that it actually has some similarities to immersive sims, I thought I really got more into it, where it's like a lot of problems can be dealt with in multiple ways. Where, like, oh, I am confronted with having to get across the swamp. there are many areas of the swamp that have red-bellied piranhas in them. If I go in there, I'm gonna get eaten to death. Now, there's a few things you could do, though. You could either try to use a ranged weapon to kill every single one of the piranhas you can in the area, or you could make raised platforms and try to hop along the raised platforms and build those, or you could actually find that there are some pathways in these swamps that don't have piranhas in them, or don't have those enemies, and you could try crossing over those ways. So there's lots of ways to deal with these, and so once you start to understand that, you almost understand the reason why those survival mechanics were put in, and why they needed to put so many of them in, so that you understood, yes, you have to keep all of these up. Now try to problem solve around it. Try to figure out how you deal with all of those, because we're going to teach you about the different things and experiment with those different things. With, like, a lot of the flowers and the mushrooms, it's pretty much just trial and error. Like, I eat it, do I get sick? Do I not get sick? Does something bad happen? You have to, like, name them. You can actually name the mushrooms because they don't have names themselves, so that you can say, oh yeah, this is great mushroom. I'm going to call this great mushroom. Fruits in the world that you name because you realize that they're bad or good or whatever. And so it just gives you these tools out of the gate so that you realize that, oh, okay, I do this, this happens. I do this, this happens. But in a framework of understand you mess up, things are going to start spiraling down very badly to the point where you're like, damn it, I don't have the tools to deal with this because I'm prepared for it. I wanted to talk about it because this is probably the most intense slate of survival mechanics and the most minutia that I think I've ever experienced in a game in my entire life.
You enjoyed it.
But at first, I was frustrated by it. And if I didn't stick with it, I would have gotten it.
So it's got a steep learning curve.
Yes, it does.
But it's worth it to stick around.
It's worth it to stick around, mostly because once you kind of understand what the game is trying to do, and why it was built this way, it becomes infinitely more interesting and engaging. But at first, when you're playing it, you're like, oh, this game is just trying to be an asshole to me. This game just hates me the entire time. And what you start to realize, and even the story kind of goes into this, is that it is supposed to be a struggle. It is supposed to be a learning experience. And you are playing, essentially, a scientist, too. So it's about the experience of understanding how these things work.
I mean, at least it gives you a reason that you'd know any of this shit if you're a scientist.
I won't give too much away, but basically the idea is that this is the second time that he has been there. But to go back and visit a tribe that he had met because he had found, like, a cure. He thought a permanent cure, but he had found a cure for his wife's illness. And he brought it back, and he wrote a whole book about it. And now he's coming back, but there's a problem, which he starts to realize, which is that, oh, all these places where the tribes were, they look abandoned. And the only tribespeople that you meet are a very angry, violent group of people that are trying to kill you. And so the whole storyline is kind of revolving around these gaps in his memory that he doesn't remember about stuff that happened, and why it happened, and ultimately kind of the destruction that he wrought upon this place himself.
Sounds like he brought something that got them sick.
Kinda. Yeah. It's kinda like that. Maybe not in the way you're thinking, but definitely in a similar
Smallpox
fashion.
blankets.
Yeah, not that way, but in some ways, yes, this does happen, and so in a lot of ways, it is almost a hell for him anyway, as you're kind of uncovering his story too. I don't see this working great in a lot of other kinds of survival games, but when you revolve your entire game around that, and you make it work for the story and the game world that you're building, I think it's fine. But it would be hard to replicate this. I don't think Pal World would benefit from this. Let's put it that way.
No, it's a very different experience they're going for.
Exactly. combat in Palworld is supposed to be fun, where you're battling, monsters and everything and trying to catch them. Combat in Green Hell is, oh shit, there's a freaking tiger coming at me, like right now, I gotta stab it before it claws me to death.
I guess it's the difference between a game that kind of just goes, yeah, we're doing a bit of survival crafting.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be a fun experience. Like Minecraft, for instance. It's a bit of survival crafting, but it's supposed to be just kind of chill fun.
Oh, sure.
And a lot of survival crafters are kind of just kind of chill fun. And you go like Partridge Zomboid, where it's like, yeah, you're gonna die a lot.
Yeah.
But like, it's not. I mean, you can make it intense, but like this survival mechanics are kind of fairly simple, intuitive, I guess. And the difference between going fully into the survival part of this game.
Yes.
Like, no holds barred there.
And this is definitely, if we were to look at the spectrum, this is fully, like, on the survival part of the spectrum. Of, literally sometimes touching things. Like, if you touch a poisoned dart frog, you get poisoned. Just straight up poisoned. Here's another example of where you're kind of, like, going, really, game? So, I talked to you about purifying food. You purify the water, you cook the food, and you get the parasites out. So you might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, I'm all set. I'm made in the shade. And I had those times where it's like, okay, cool, I'm eating my food. I got parasites. And I was like, how did I get parasites? I just cooked all the food, and I cooked all the water. I was dirty. You get dirt from doing things, and you have to make sure to wash yourself. If you eat food while you are dirty, parasites can transfer from your dirty fucking hands to the food, and you can still get sick if you're not maintaining your hygiene in this game. And I was like, oh my god, I have to think of freaking everything. But also, that's kinda great. I can't believe the game thought to do this to me. I think that the thing that Green Hell does that's really, really great is that by putting you in that space where you're like, I have to think of everything, it makes you hyper-conscientious of the world around you, which should probably be how you would feel if you were trapped in an Amazon rainforest by yourself,
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be worrying about being clean. Maybe washing my hands occasionally.
Right. But be aware, there may be parasites on your hands. You gotta take care of that. Remember that for the future. Do you think that this is something that you would want to play just based on like the level of survival mechanics? Does that seem like something that would be interesting to you?
No, probably not.
No, little too deep in the weeds.
That's a lot more than I'd be willing to endure, I think.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit too much for some people. I think the reason I wanted to play it, though, is because I knew that it was serious about the survival mechanics part, and I was like, since it's a genre that I'm always playing, let's just try playing the game that went, like, full in, like, all in on that aspect, and see how it works. And
I tried Ark Survival Evolved, which also, I think, went kind of full in on that.
Really? Okay, I haven't played that, so...
Couldn't do Ark. We talked about this.
Well, and the thing about it is that I could see this model going very badly very quickly. If it weren't for the fact that it was as well done and made sense for the game that they were building, this could have just been an annoying slog. But luckily, because of the way they decided to build the game, and the way they decided to do the narrative structure and everything, this actually makes perfect sense for what they were trying to build. And so, because of that, I really came to appreciate it. I think it is actually one of the best survival crafting games ever, just because it really wanted you, it puts you in an actual mood to be in that space of trying to survive. And they actually put you in that space of realizing everything is going to try to kill you. Even the plants. There are literally some plants that have spikes on them. You get too close to them, they prick you. there's like no safe space in this. You can't go anywhere in this game without a problem.
Go anywhere.
I mean, you could go anywhere, but you're probably going to die. So you have to be very conscientious, very, and kind of paranoid. But I kind of love that it put me in that space of being paranoid, and as you're also kind of like unraveling what's happening in the storyline, and getting used to the main character's revelations that also kind of expand and open up this world to what's happening here. But anyway, and a very good game. But I do understand that, like, the level of survival mechanics that are going into this do not translate well to almost any other game that would be in the genre. So,
right. If you like paranoia and survival experiences that crank it up to the max.
Yeah, go try Green Hell. But don't expect that this kind of thing where you have sandy meters and wounds and injuries and infections and multiple kinds of nutrition facts on your arm, and that you could get parasites from being dirty, will translate very well to almost any other example of the survival genre. So just be mindful of that. If anyone out there has played Green Hell or might have other suggestions for me that kind of did similar things to it and that worked or didn't work, feel free to leave us a little bit of comment in the comments down below, and we'll take a look at it and be kind of interested to see if this is kind of a lone example of this, or if there are some other games that maybe attempted it for better or worse. Not that I'm aware of, at least, from all the ones I've played. So, let us know.